TiVo is responsible for the phenomena of enabling viewers to take control of their television experience, and part of that, of course, is only watching ads when they want to watch ads, meaning TiVo created the fast-forwarding through the commercial phenomena. With 50 to 60 million DVRs, and we very much believe that's within the range of what will be out there in the next few years, what's even more problematic for the traditional television industry is that will probably represent 2/3 or more of the homes advertisers most care about reaching. And that's going to create enormous challenges for the traditional television business. In fact, whatever pressures and issues are created by this current economic crisis, I think they pale by comparison to what will be facing the television industry when the full impact of 50 to 60 million DVRs being out there is felt. Now, having created that issue, we've come about to solve that issue. And that is a fundamental part of what TiVo does in partnering with the media industry today. We work with advertisers, agencies, television networks, programmers to create new ways for advertisers to be able to get their messages through on television, despite the fact that most people are going to look to avoid commercials in the traditional way that they've been presented. So your question is there hope for the television industry against that kind of backdrop? And my answer is a resounding yes. On the other hand, do I see the television industry moving with the kind of urgency that it needs to meet this challenge? And I give you a resounding no. So the question as to whether or not that hope will turn into a reality for the television industry in terms of really getting ahead of this issue and being able to manage it so that television can continue to have its place as the most effective advertising medium out there will depend with what kind of urgency the television industry, all aspects of the industry, come to attack this problem, which means embracing the kinds of ad solutions that will work in an environment where viewers decide to watch television differently. The current economic situation is obviously very grave. I don't have any real prediction as to how long it's going to last, but most out there believe this is not going to be a short downturn. So I think everything will be affected, and all forms of consumer spending will be affected. I think that some impact on DVRs will follow from that. There are two things, though, going on out there that are trends that I do believe will play some counteracting role against that downward economic pressure. One is that the HD television trend will continue, helped by the federal government mandate of transition to digital television. With that, more and more consumers are buying HD television sets. With the downturn in automobile purchasing, it's probably reasonable to say that for many households, the big flat panel television set will be their biggest household consumer purchase over the next couple of years. With those expectations that people have when buying an HD television set, that their overall television experience will improve, DVRs will continue to play a major role in tying themselves to this trend of purchases of HD television sets. Certainly at TiVo, the TiVo HD is heavily promoted when people buy a new television set, and Best Buy, for instance, is very much geared toward packaging a TiVo with a new HD set. The second trend that I think helps the industry counteract what's going on out there in the macroeconomic world is that in-home entertainment becomes that much more important. People go out less because they want to spend less, and that means viewing options in the home, generally in-home entertainment, becomes that much more important. There's nothing that gets you better value for what you're paying for by way of your in-home entertainment than a DVR, for the basic reason that you know whenever you want to watch the shows you most care about, they're on. And that, by definition, means you're getting the most value out of your cable or satellite subscription. So I think to some extent these other trends will counteract the negative impact that the economic cycle will bring. question of how receptive advertisers are really has to be broken down into two answers. The first is everybody wants to talk to TiVo. TiVo's a great brand name. People know that it stands for all kinds of pioneering innovation. A few years ago, people might have said, well, TiVo's been commoditized. There are a lot of DVRs out there. But in the last couple years, we've come forward with so many innovations in the television experience and especially the advertising experience that people want to sit down and have that conversation. But the second piece is, once they have the conversation, what do they do about it? Do they really embrace the need to move urgently to deal with the fact that we are going to have 50 to 60 million homes out there that are able to avoid commercials? And the writing is so clearly on the wall. This isn't hypothetical anymore. Will people, when they get a DVR, watch commercials or not? We have the data from the households that have TiVo today, and it is abundantly clear that the majority of commercials in those homes get avoided. And we know that's only going to grow as people get more and more comfortable with defining the viewing experience in this highly personalized way that TiVo allows you to define it. So the question is, will they move with the urgency in embracing these responses? And the verdict is out on that. We are certainly evangelizing and bringing this problem to the industry and saying, look, do you want to go the way of the newspaper industry, which now is really without a model to deal with what's happened to it? Do you want to go the way of the music industry, which allowed the digital issues to overwhelm it before it really was able to come back with a model that made sense? Television industry, writing's on the wall. You may have 2 years. In the next 2 years, you have to figure out all the things which work in this environment, so 2 years from now, you're prepared to answer it. Otherwise, you'll end up having moved too late, like the newspaper industry, like the music industry. Verdict is still out on that. I will say that it is an absolute imperative that the industry arm itself with the data that exists, that we generate from the 3.5 million homes on a second-by-second basis, so it can understand exactly what goes on in DVR households. The data itself is incredibly instructive in terms of what people watch, what they don't watch, and why. And if nothing else, people need to arm themselves with that to understand what is going on and the world that they will be dealing with in the next couple of years. We do think there are certain techniques that will allow commercials to get through in a way that fast forwarding will not be as significant all the time. But it will be significant most of the time, meaning will better ads probably get viewed more than other ads on a traditional basis? Yes. There's some thinking in the television industry that if you target ads to just the demographic so that you're sending out versions of ads for different households based on the demographic in that household, you're more likely to get the ad viewed in a traditional means and not have it fast forwarded. Both of those, quality and targeting, I think at the margins will play a role in causing people to watch an ad in a traditional form rather than fast forwarding through it. But it's not an answer. It makes a difference at the margin. It's not going to cause, if 60% of households would fast forward through an ad saying, oh, it's a quality ad, nobody will fast forward through it. At the margins, it will reduce the number of people that fast forward. But the general feeling among viewers is, and our research shows this over and over again, that people want to watch their programs. They don't want to watch ads in the middle of their programs. Therefore, it's incumbent on the advertiser to find other ways to catch eyeballs and cause them to go into it in a way that people will go in. They'll invite it. They want to see more. Ads by themselves are not an evil thing. It's when people want to see an ad that's the key. And so what we do is create a user interface and all kinds of entry points that allow people to come to ads in ways that are more convenient and more available for them based on when they would like to see something. And that's going to be the key to the future. giving people ads at times that they want to go in and see them, not forcing them to see them when you would like to have had them see it based on what traditional television structures have been. I think there are critical ways that we can learn from what the movie industry has done with TiVo, for instance, in using a movie advertisement to engage people more deeply. We have had a number of movie companies work with TiVo. And what we do is tag a 30-second movie ad. What we then do is allow people to know when that tag comes up in that 30-second spot that there is the full 3-minute trailer from that movie underneath that 30-second ad. And by simply pushing a button, you're taken to it. Now, any movie promoter will tell you, get people to watch the full 3-minute trailer of a movie versus the edited 30-second version of that trailer. And you have a far greater likelihood of getting somebody to come to the movie. So our job is get people to watch that 3-minute trailer. Once we've gotten them to watch the 3-minute trailer, we want them to get even closer to the movie theater. How do we do that? Well, you push another button and it tells you where that movie is playing locally for you. So you get the local listings right up there on your television screen when that movie trailer is top of mind and you're thinking, that looks pretty good. When's that playing? Where is that playing? Then we take them even closer, and with a push of a button again, you go right to Fandango on your television screen with the opportunity to purchase a ticket right there from your living room. So what we've done is, from a 30-second ad that somebody may or may not watch, gotten you into a deeper, more immersive, more entertaining experience. And from that, get you the information and ultimately allow you to transact. Now, advertisers of all ilks are going to need to embrace that kind of approach. Something that gets people into a deeper, more immersive experience, something that gets them more information about the product or service, something that may actually allow them to transact right there on the television screen. It's going to be far more valuable. It's why I'm so hopeful about the future of television advertising. Because if these techniques are embraced, you have the ability to connect to a viewer in a way that's far better than the passive viewing of a 30-second ad delivered in a traditional sense. But it's all about embracing these techniques, knowing what works for your product, having some experience with it, testing, both from a creative point of view and from an interactive user interface point of view. And with that experience, be armed 2 years from now when there are 50 to 60 million households and it becomes commonplace to ignore television ads transmitted in the traditional way. Well, unfortunately, boilerplate is boilerplate, and it really never cuts to the essence of what we have to offer. And what we have to offer is something truly distinctive. Many advertisers look at new and innovative advertising, and they put interactive elements on the internet and what you can do with a cell phone and what you may be able to do with cable video on demand and what we do, and put them all together and say, yeah, we're figuring out what's new out there and we're positioned to be able to ride those waves in the future. That misses the point. It misses the point badly, because television is really different. And while video on demand is certainly a good way for people to have more viewing options, most people, even in active video on demand households, spend a tiny, tiny fraction of their time with video on demand. What we're talking to is the broad array of options on traditional television, where people spend the overwhelming amount of their time. And television is becoming even more powerful as a medium. Big, flat-screen television sets in HD make television's advantage of being able to provide real punch with an advertising, real graphical impact, that much more important. And advertisers can't afford to lose the import and effectiveness of television advertising. That's so critical to how products get marketed in this country. So you can't put the cell phone and tiny amounts of time spent on VOD in the same bucket with what we do. What we do is all about, now that people are going to watch television in a different way, how do you connect the advertising experience to that new viewing experience? And if it's embraced, there's all kinds of ways to make your advertising even more effective. There are two pieces to it. Our ad solutions, which include all kinds of different ways to catch the eyeball when somebody's otherwise fast forwarding through and give them many different access points to come into your ad beyond just sitting there passively and watching a 30-second spot, which isn't going to work anymore. And it's the audience research data that not only tells you what's working and not working, both for your products and for competitive products, but it also tells you second by second how your interactive solution ad you do with us is actually working. And in doing so, puts television advertising on the same footing as internet advertising. Why has internet advertising been so successful? Because it can measure. It's accountable. It actually shows the advertiser every click, and with that they can actually measure with great precision return on investment. Well, television advertising is lacking dramatically in terms of that factor because it isn't as accountable, it isn't as measurable. Put second by second measurement and audience research data that conveys that behind your ad solutions, and television can be every bit as impactful as internet advertising. Combine that with the great visual impact of big widescreen television HD, and you have something that's far more effective than internet advertising. So what we're about is creating a future for television advertising that we think can be more effective than television advertising ever has been. We're doing our part. The advertisers, the programmers, the networks have to do their part of getting ahead of this, not being in the same position as the newspaper and music industries, but saying, we know this is coming, we're going to get ahead of it and prepare for it so that 2 years from now, we are in a position to be at the forefront of more effective advertising as opposed to being victims of something that they can all see what's going to happen to them if they don't move.